happy to invite our next speaker to the stage, Jessica Diaz. Jessica did the Master in Advanced Architecture in 2015-17, and she's going to talk to us today about algae as a client and fungi as a partner, the world of biodesign. Jessica is a researcher and designer who specializes in biomaterials. She's the co-founder of Biobabes, which is a multidisciplinary connective that works with living organisms and together with other IAC alumni. And she's also co-founder of S-BIOTICA, a biodesign and material research hub based in Barcelona. So Jessica hasn't come from very far, but she will take you very far shortly. Thanks, Jess.
Firstly, thank you for inviting me here today to speak at the IAC Alumni meeting. I'm going to be speaking a little bit about my journey into biodesign, which I owe largely to my time at IAC, for opening my eyes to a new world of, or a new fascinating world of design. So it all began in 2017 when a group of girls working with the bioluminescent bacteria Vibrio fischeri were so captivated by our little babies that our peers began to call us the Biobabes. And most of us began to, or continued to work with living or organic matter throughout our studies. And once we graduated, Thora Anadotir and I decided to adopt our name, our nickname, and started the collective Biobabes. So as Biobabes, we wanted to share our knowledge and experience working within the field of biodesign and explore the interaction with non-human life, hoping to develop a more symbiotic relationship with nature through design. So through our projects, or through our research and design projects, we wanted to share principles of biodesign. Our first project is working with the organism Physarum polycephalum, or slime mold. And here we redesigned its habitat into a glass vessel. So the glass allows us a closeness to the organism, but it allows us to contain a sterile growing environment while still showcasing the elaborate network and formations that the organism produces. So the idea here is that it's sort of like a pet, like a bio-tamagotchi, where you learn to care for your organism. So you understand its behaviors, when it needs to be fed, when it needs to rest. And so we developed a toolkit which the user can then use in the comfort of their own home. This toolkit has it has a sterilization space, inoculation tools, it has little petri dishes so that you can keep the organism alive, and it has instructions on how to care for it. So the idea is that once the life cycle of the organism has been fulfilled within this glass vessel, it can then be washed out and then re-inoculated and then redesigned. So the more energy and love and time that you put into giving towards these organisms, the more elaborate the formations can be, making this a true collaboration with organism and user or designer. It was also the first project that allowed us to shift our design thinking in working with living organisms. So after graduating at IAC, I worked with Anastasia Pistofidou at Fab Textiles Fab Lab Barcelona. I was given the opportunity to work with the bacteria strain Xanthinobacterium lividum, which is a soil-dwelling bacteria, means it's found in soils, it's harmless. And as part of its metabolic process, it produces a dark purple pigment. This pigment can be harvested and then used to dye fabric, or it can be inoculated directly onto a piece of organic textile. So in this research, I think maybe I should stand here. So for this research, I used different folding and shibori techniques to explore the different outcomes that the bacteria would produce. One of my observations was that even if you did the same folding technique several times, each time the outcome would be different. So there's no way of controlling how the organism is going to grow in the fabric. So really it's sort of like a proper collaboration with organism once again. This research was then embodied as a dress. It was designed in CAD, laser cut, and then sewn together. And it was an investigation on how this could be applied to real-world fashion applications. So in 2020, Biobabes then collaborated with Lara Campos and Catherine Wally to develop the project Future Wardrobe. So Future Wardrobe was an EU-funded project from the Worth Partnership Program. And this particular project explores 3 different lines of investigation. So we have the material research, we have the living organism, the algae, and we have the biosonification technology. So in this case, we really wanted to change our thinking and design, and so we considered the algae as our client as opposed to the human. So we prioritized the algae's needs, understanding its behavior, what it would need, and came up with different scenarios on how we could design for the algae. So the material aspect of this project uses an algae derivative, but this time it's macroalgae, so it's kelp. It's a completely biodegradable material. It's hydrophobic, it's flexible, it can be manipulated in many different forms. For example, in this case, we have created the thread, we have weaved the thread, we have added some fibers for resistance, and then the whole project for the material part was really to kind of showcase the potential this material has. Now, one thing to consider is, as promising as this material is, we don't think it's quite ready for market. For example, during the summer months in Barcelona, the material began to sweat. So there are things to consider when working with a biomaterial that actually it doesn't behave like a normal material. It will start to deform, and these are things that we need to try and test. So the biosonification component of this project involves a MIDI controller, which produces a sound, and 2 electrodes that are then placed inside of the algae pouch. So if you can see it clearly, these little pouches, which live on their shoulders, are living algae. So the 2 electrodes are put inside of the algae pouch and then produce sound. So the idea is that it's a way of communicating with our organism. The user listens to what the organism needs, or tries to interpret if it's happy or if it's sad, or if it needs to be outside in the sunshine, or if it needs to be moved around because algae needs to be agitated. So it's quite speculative at this stage. It doesn't necessarily not a direct translation, but what we understood was that that if the algae was stagnant, maybe it'd be unhappy, so that we would need to move it. This was a video that unfortunately I can't show, but it's really, really cool to see. If you are interested in seeing it, you can follow me on Instagram and find it. But basically, it was exploring how in this project we use the humans as a vehicle for the algae. So we're kind of using that humans to spread the message for the algae, because the algae, well, they produce like 70% of our oxygen. So without them, we wouldn't be here. So they're very important, and as designers, we wanted to make sure that that message was communicated through our project. So, of course, in order to be able to develop this project, we needed a space. And fortunately, with this funding, we were able to open a studio here in Barcelona. This is S-BIOTICA. It's run by myself and my colleague, Lara Campos. It's a creative biodesign, biomaterial research hub led by a transdisciplinary team of artists, makers, designers, and actually a biologist now as well. So we really believe in a transdisciplinary approach, so learning from different fields. And most of our practice evolves around like just playful, experimental trial and error. So material research is a big part of our project, or part of our practice. And we want to explore how materials can evoke different emotions on us. So their textures, their smells, the viscosities, where they come from, how they're made, and actually how they're disposed of. So a big part of our practice is having these explorations and sharing our knowledge and experience with others to help them understand how they too can make materials out of things like organic matter, so their kitchen waste, for example. Here's a little sneak peek into the studio. The studio has like a biolab, a material lab, an exhibition area, and like a range of different machines and tools that we've either made ourselves or have collected over the years. So as I mentioned, education is a big part of what we do. So we host a lot of workshops and seminars, and also the partnering with both industry and academia is a big part of our progress as well. The newest addition to our space is the myco lab, which I'm very happy about or very excited about, because we recently were able to purchase a laminar flow hood, which is a sterile environment, making all of our research much more efficient. So my main practice is actually working with mushroom material. I actually began this at IAC and fell in love with the process and the organism. And now, well, here are a few examples of different strains that I've been testing, different substrates, different molding techniques. It's important to mention here that all of these are working at a small scale. So working at a small scale is very different to using large-scale molds and especially working with living organisms. So, which leads me to the next project, which is my current focus at the moment, which is a mushroom material surfboard. This project began in June 2020 when I was approached by Platt Institute to develop a board. These are the initial tests that we did. Again, nice and small scale, easy to do. And then last year we were joined by Roberto Bros, from an MDiv graduate, and Ryan Davidson, who is a surf shaper in Barcelona. And here's just a little example of how the process is. So basically we use agricultural waste. We inoculate it with mycelium. Mycelium, in case you don't know, is the root system of the mushroom. It acts as a great natural binder. It's then dehydrated, and in this case, we hand it over to Ryan, and he does his magic. So he sanded it, fiberglassed it, and put a resin coating on it. So it's actually exactly how the surfboard would be, but it's miniature scale. So then we start scaling up the process. Now, the reason we have to do this in stages is because, especially working with living organisms, each time you scale up, you need because we do everything from scratch, so we're growing our own material, it requires a lot more time and energy and equipment to be able to produce that much material. So the process kind of changes as you start to scale up. So this is the doggy board, so it's a dog-sized surfboard. Here we're learning the type of molding that we're going to be doing, if this works or if this doesn't work, how we're going to dehydrate it, if it can withstand the forces, if we need to change the substrate formula or even change the type of strain. So this was completed like the end of last year, and now actually this week we began making the full-size surfboard. So here we still started to do it the half of the board, just because if something does go wrong, we've wasted a lot of time and energy producing the material when it didn't really work out. So one thing to consider when working with mushrooms in particular is that you really have to plan what you're doing to a T. You have to be meticulous about it, because if something goes wrong, it's a lot of time and energy wasted. So even just taking this step, we learn a lot about how we're going to produce the final surfboard itself, which should hopefully be coming out by this summer. Okay, and so finally, with all my learnings and experiences with mushrooms over the last few years, I collaborated with Catherine Ouali to put together a myco-material course. I've been doing lots of mushroom workshops over the years, but this is actually a full course which teaches people how to cultivate from the beginning, but then how to create their own micro-composites and how to optimize the substrate formulas and how to make molds, etc. So this is, we did a four-day course last year, and we're just about to launch the online version in a few weeks. So, thank you very much for listening to my talk. If you're interested in learning anything or a little bit more about any of my projects, please follow any of my Instagram handles. There's quite a lot of them. And yeah, thank you.